Andrew Luck is seen as having one of the best rookie seasons of any quarterback in the history of the NFL, and many projected him to have a future legacy similar to Peyton Manning. When the Colts drafted him with the number 1 overall pick in the 2012 NFL Draft, they didn't just see a franchise quarterback. They saw someone who would eventually go into the Hall of Fame with multiple Super Bowl wins. Then, after 7 seasons and 0 Super Bowls or conference championships, Luck abruptly announced that he was retiring, leaving the entire NFL fanbase wondering what could have been. Let's go back a little ways and see what led up to this hype in the first place. Andrew grew up in a football family. To put things in perspective, his dad was the commissioner of the XFL, the vice president for regulatory affairs at the NCAA, the athletic director at West Virginia University, and oh yeah, the quarterback of the Houston Oilers. Needless to say, it seemed like at a young age, Andrew was destined to play football. He played at Stratford High School in Houston, where he threw for, get this, 7,139 yards and ran for another 2,085. If that wasn't impressive enough, he was also the valedictorian, so he got to choose wherever the heck he wanted to go to school. And like all valedictorians, he wanted to go to Stanford, where he played for none other than Jim Harbaugh. Here's a fun fact for you. Before Andrew Luck, Stanford had never won more than 10 games in a season. He won 12 in his sophomore year and lost only to Oregon, which would eventually go to the BCS championship game and lose to Cam Newton's Auburn team. He threw for 32 touchdowns, beating John Elway's single-season record of 27. He won practically every single award that wasn't the Heisman, but even then, he finished as the runner-up 2 different times. Between 1971 and Andrew Luck, Stanford had only been ranked in the top 10 for a total of 3 weeks. Andrew kept them there for 24. A solid quarterback makes a bad team look good, and this guy made a bottom dweller look undefeatable. Fast forward a little bit and we arrive at the 2012 NFL Draft. Andrew Luck was selected number 1 by the Colts, and it wasn't even a contest. The year prior, Colts quarterback Peyton Manning was injured, which is important to realize because that put the team in the hands of possibly the worst quarterback in NFL history, Dan Orlovsky. The Colts were actually a really good team, but because of the absolutely abysmal quarterbacks they had on the roster, they finished with a record of 2-14, worse than they'd ever had with Peyton Manning. Speaking of which, at this point, the Colts had no idea whether or not Peyton would ever return to his old self. So what did they do? They cut him. They just let him go. They let him frolic on over to the Broncos, who were more than happy to replace Tim Tebow. This was Andrew Luck's moment to shine. When Andrew arrived in the NFL, saying he performed well would be the understatement of the century. He absolutely blew up the NFL. Let's just start with the Colts franchise records. Most passing yards by a rookie in a game. Most pass attempts by a rookie in a season. Most completions by a rookie in a season. Most completions by a rookie in a game. Most passing touchdowns by a rookie in a game. And if we're talking about league records, he had the most passing yards by a rookie in a season, most game-winning drives by a rookie quarterback, most passing yards for a quarterback through his first 5 postseason games, and he was the first quarterback ever to throw for 370 yards or more, 4 touchdowns, and have a completion percentage 70% or above in consecutive games. This guy had Hall of Fame written all over him. And he hadn't even won his conference yet. He was the NFL passing leader in 2014, the comeback player of the year in 2018 after missing the entirety of the 2017 season, and he was a 4-time Pro Bowl selection. So far we've talked about his accolades, but we haven't talked about his actual seasons yet. Well, he had a regular season record of 11-5 in his first 3 seasons. As far as I know, no quarterback has ever done that before or since. In his first season, he went 0-1 in the playoffs, losing to the eventual Super Bowl champions, the Baltimore Ravens. The next year, he did even better, beating Andy Reid's Chiefs with a mind-blowing final score of 44-45, but falling short 22-43 to Tom Brady's Patriots. In his third postseason, hopes were high. He started off with a win against Andy Dalton's Bengals. The next game, though, was the real test. He was going up against his predecessor in Indy, Peyton Manning, and he showed up to the challenge. Indy won that game with a score of 24-13. Just one more game and they were in the Super Bowl again. For those of you keeping up, you might realize what happened in the 2015 AFC Championship game, known by some fans as Deflategate. It's usually meant to make Tom Brady out to be a cheater, but Tom Brady wasn't the guy who threw 2 interceptions and 0 touchdowns. That was okay though. Andrew would be back next. Oh, yeah, the injuries. Andrew Luck only played 1 more full season, missing 9 games in 2015, one game in 2016, and the entirety of the 2017 season. People like to say that the Colts did nothing to protect Andrew, but the Colts drafted an offensive lineman with their first pick in 3 different drafts. In 2018, they used both a first and second round pick drafting O-linemen, but it wasn't enough. In 2019, Andrew Luck decided that he'd had enough and decided to retire just before the beginning of the 2019 season. He stated that his main reason for retiring was the injuries, and we had every right to believe him. His career didn't seem like it was ever going to kick back up. His prime was over, but Andrew later disclosed that his decision to retire was more mental than physical. When you're a professional athlete at the absolute top, you're consistently focused on being the best. But that was having a negative effect on his family relationships. There are things more important than football, and Andrew Luck recognized that just in time to create a good life for his family. While he may never go into the Hall of Fame for the NFL, he was inducted into the College Hall of Fame in 2022 and the Stanford Hall of Fame in 2023, leaving behind a long line of what could have beens along the way. So, what happened next? Well, the answer is pretty boring, but that's just how Andrew likes it. After retiring, he decided to become a full-time dad. In 2019, he welcomed his first daughter into the world with his second not too far behind. He came back to Stanford in 2022 to get a graduate degree in education, and in 2023, he began coaching in Palo Alto. Not at Stanford, but at the lowly Palo Alto High School, where he coaches junior varsity and doesn't have to be the best in the world. Maybe we could all learn a little bit from Andrew. With all the talent, brains, and money in the world, he didn't need any of it. And maybe what matters most are the things that we have in our own lives right now.